Hey guys, welcome to week 3. Um, we are going to be reading Act 3, and we're going to be reviewing some of the questions from last week first, and then I'll get into Act 3 stuff. So, review Act 2, and then move into some stuff for Act 3. Make sure you're posting your stuff, guys. Remember, the directions are posted for you, and I do have those extra summary videos for you if you're still not understanding after you both read and watch some of my explanation stuff. So there are resources posted for you, so let me know if you have any additional questions. Thank you for most of you who are posting things on time or even early. That is completely fine to post things early, guys, as long as it's not late, because then I have to do a lot of extra work to hound you about turning in your work. How many times do you want to talk to me? I'm sure not that many. So help me help you. So going back to Act 2, we had 4 questions this week. Our first was, Polonius is an idiot and it makes no sense. What does he ask his servant Ronaldo to do to Laertes? So he actually asked Laertes, or Ronaldo, to go spread like little baby rumors about his son. So he says, I want you to go and spread these like little bitty rumors to see if they stick, to see if people believe them, to kind of test his character, which seems a little excessive even for Polonius. Like, why would your parents go spread rumors about you? Seems a little excessive, which it is. But again, Polonius doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He's not that smart. So that's what we kind of start the scene with, which a lot of spying, a lot of lying, which again has just compounded throughout the text. Like there's a lot of spying and lying to different groups of people. Our second question is, does Claudius like Polonius? So Polonius keeps talking and talking and talking, and everybody's like, be brief, talk quickly and shortly, talk concisely, use less words. And he doesn't. So we can really assume that Claudius kind of just keeps Polonius around because he's an idiot, and he pretty much goes with whatever the king says. He basically kisses his butt. So Claudius may not like him, but he maybe finds him useful, so he keeps him around. But I am interested to see what other people have to say about that. Who are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? Remember, guys, they are Hamlet's friends from Wittenberg. And they are there at the castle because the king and queen asked them to come there. And they are being asked to basically spy on Hamlet to see how he's doing and whatnot. Basically just, again, spying. So this becomes a huge part of the play, especially as we continue into scene 3, which a lot of spying comes up in scene 3 as well. And it cost a character their life. And then we finally have question 4, or D, here. How does Hamlet interact with Polonius, and what about him with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? So he makes fun of Polonius every time he speaks to him. In scene 2, I believe it's the time where he talks to him, and he's like, oh, you're a fishmonger? Which is a person who sells fish, like something's fishy. He's like, no. He's like, don't you have a daughter? And Polonius is like, he does know my daughter. And Hamlet's like, can't trust women. They're kinda not good people. You should make sure she gets to a nunnery so she has that, unfathered, unwedded child, not in the presence of civilized people. So he basically kind of calls her bad names, and then to her father, who doesn't really get it, that he's making fun of both Polonius and Ophelia. And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Hamlet's not sure on how to take them at first. He's questioning them. At first when he's like, so why are you here? Like, it's good to see you, but why are you here? So they're kind of like, well, we're here to, hang out with you. And he's like, oh, you sure it's not for my father's funeral, aka my mother's marriage? And they're like, well, those, we went to those too. And then he's like, oh, you're just here to spy on me. And they're like, no. And of course Hamlet's like, So you think I'm an idiot. Got it. And you're going to see this interaction get a lot more intense between all of these characters in Act 3. So Act 3 has four scenes, Act 3 has 4 scenes. They're a little bit longer. Remember, I told you if there's shorter scenes, the scenes are longer, and if there's a lot of scenes, the scenes are shorter. There's just more. So, for example, I think it's Act 4 that has 7 scenes, but they're all pretty short. So I'm going to go ahead and review some of the stuff from Act 3. So we enter Act 3, Scene 1 with the king and queen kind of checking in with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern on how Hamlet's doing. And they're like, oh, he's kind of working with us, but he's asking a lot of questions. He wants to know why we're here, if we're spying on him, all this kind of stuff. He seems really kind of paranoid. And they're like, well, okay. He has been acting a little weird. Just kind of stay on it. And then Polonius again chimes in with his whole, he's a lovesick. He just wants to be with my daughter, who I told her to stay away from him. And again, remember, the only person that kind of saw through this ridiculousness was, in fact, the queen, who says, really, it seems like his father just died and his mother and uncle just got married, like, really quick after. So he may just be upset because everything's happening so fast. But no one listens to her. She's a woman. They don't listen to people like that. So Polonius still thinks that, and of course, remember, their game plan is for Ophelia to kind of be Hamlet bait, and go talk to him. And the king and Polonius are going to hide behind a little tapestry and hide and listen and spy on them. So again, we have another instance of spying, which again becomes very, very, very important in the play, and it ends with a lot of death. All tragedies do. So we kind of cut to Hamlet right before Ophelia and the king and Polonius are all in their positions for this plan. And Hamlet's talking about himself. And he does this speech, which is probably one of the most famous Shakespeare lines, let alone Hamlet lines, out there. The to be or not to be speech, when it literally means to be, to exist, to live, or to not live, exist. And in this speech, Hamlet really goes into it, and he's like, should I kill myself? I'm so depressed. Should I kill myself? Should I even exist? Should I be here with how miserable I feel? He literally says, is it like dreaming? When you die, do you dream? Do you just wake up? Do you not see anything? How is it? And he's like, even worse, if I kill myself and it's not dreamlike, if it's not like a sleep, if it doesn't wake up better, what if it's worse? So he's kind of stuck between, do I exist and continue with this misery, or do I take the chance that something might be more miserable when I die? Especially hell or purgatory or anything like that, like the king is in. And by king, of course, I mean King Hamlet Sr., not Claudius at this point. And so remember, the ghost says it's very awful where he's at, and purgatory is very bad, that Hamlet doesn't want that. And of course, killing himself would get him a one-way ticket to probably purgatory, maybe hell. I don't know how that works. Ask your local priest. I don't know. But they kind of finish up that speech, and he kind of says, to sleep, perhaps, or perchance to dream. Maybe I'll dream, maybe it'll be nice, but maybe it won't. So he kind of leaves it again where he's just overthinking everything, which he seems to do throughout the text. He just thinks and thinks and thinks, but he never actually does anything. If you notice that, the only action he does is kind of set up this play. And we haven't even seen that yet. So he doesn't do a whole lot for someone who's thinking and thinking and thinking. He just overthinks and doesn't really act or react. So then we actually finally have Ophelia stumble across Hamlet, and they're having a conversation, and Shakespeare went a little aggressive. Hamlet says a lot of mean things to Ophelia, and she's like, here are these things that you gave me, like when you loved me, all these tokens of your appreciation, your love, you can take them back. He's like, I didn't give you nothing. And she's like, but you did. He's like, up, but I didn't. And she's like, up, but you did. And it just keeps going and going. And he's like, basic, paraphrasing big time. But basically he tells her, you're looking a little, you sure you're still pure? You sure you're still, marryable? You sure you're not pregnant with some not your husband's baby, even if it's mine? And he really hits that home very, very strongly. And he kind of sort of figures out that the king and Polonius, or at least somebody, is listening. So that's when he starts saying these extra, extra mean things about her, like maybe she's like pregnant out of wedlock, maybe, she's doing like things that she's not supposed to, maybe she was lying about the whole thing. And goes back and forth, and she's like, you're lying, and he's like, no, you're lying. And they literally, it's a back and forth thing where he insults her several times with basically all the bad things you can say about a woman. And he kind of leaves it at that, because she's still pretty, like, whatever you say, very docile, very non-confrontational. She's not going to get in an argument with a man, let alone the prince. So the little interaction ends, and I say little, it's kind of lengthy. And the king decides, no, this wasn't love sickness. This is something else. But we need to figure out what it is. But of course, he has Rosencrantz and Guildenstern on the case, so he feels confident that he'll find some answers. Polonius is still convinced that it's love sickness over his daughter, and the king decides at the end of scene 1 that he's just going to keep an eye on Hamlet because madness must be watched. So craziness must be watched, especially in royalty, people who can make decisions and have power. Then we kind of move into scene 2. Hamlet is talking to the actors. Hamlet kind of proves himself that he's good at remembering things and spitting back these same lines that the actors are spitting at him. And he's talking to the actors again about adding that little extra scene. I think it was like about 14, 16 lines or something like that added into the play. And then we kind of have him and Horatio, Hamlet and Horatio, we're going over the game plan. That remember, they're going to test the king with this play. They're going to test his guilty conscience. They're going to have the play going, and they're going to have a scene in there where it matches the murder of his father, according to the ghost. And they're going to kind of test him and see how that works. And then there's a small little tidbit where we find out that the queen is going to meet with Hamlet after the play and let him know that he needs to go to England, because basically Claudius has decided he's going to send him to England, so it'll be England's problem, but basically they're going to have England execute Hamlet rather than the king execute Hamlet, because they really like him. The people of the country in Denmark really like Hamlet, so they don't want to see him killed, and that might cause some issues for Claudius, so they're going to send him to England and have it be England's problem. And England is very notorious for this. Chopping everybody's heads off. The London Bridge guys actually used to have, like, decaying bodies and heads on spits, like, lined up across the London Bridge, decaying and just there to make sure that you weren't acting a fool. And that's why the water was so nasty, all the stuff that was going into it, and that's why people drank a lot. It was safer to drink alcohol than it was, or distilled liquids, rather than drink any kind of clean water or pure water. I mean, just think of how much nasty, decaying stuff was in the Thames River. And that's just, it gets bad quick. So we have the queen, of course, talking to him. Everyone gets ready for the play at this point. And Hamlet goes and sits by Ophelia. This ain't gonna be good. We already know it. So Hamlet continues his dirty jokes. And he's like, let me lay my head in your lap. Referring to intercourse. And she's like, my lord, like, how can you say such profane things? And he's like, literally, let me just put my head on your lap. And she's like, okay, whatever. You're just gonna call me bad words again, but okay. And he says a couple other like inappropriate comments, and she's just like, my lord, like, you're acting bananas. And he's like, whatevs. So, we have that going on. The play begins, and the play is called The Murder of Gonzago, also known as The Mousetrap. And I think The Mousetrap definitely is a good term for it, because they're trapping the king. They're trying to trap him and see like if he's guilty. To catch the conscience of the king is the way they phrase it. So Polonius. Polonius and not Polonius. The player king, the actor king, talks about how the queen should love him, and he's there for her, and he loves her unconditionally. And the queen kind of says something different. She says, "I love you endlessly," and all this kind of stuff. And the king is like, until someone better comes along. And the queen actually comments, and she says, "I think the queen doth protest too much." Like, she's complaining too much. Like, he's there and he loves her, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of commenting on Claudius and Gertrude's relationship, and how she kind of just moved on to the next guy as soon as her last one was gone. And then, of course, Hamlet has to comment in the background. He's like, sounds familiar. And everybody's just kind of like, what are you talking about? They don't get it. And then he has to explain the whole play to Ophelia. And he kind of course, explains it the way he sees it, and comments on all of the negative relationships in the play so far. Then the murder scene finally happens, and Claudius literally freaks out when he sees what the king laying there. His brother comes in and pours poison in the ear. Then he takes the crown and he runs away. And Claudius literally stands up and runs away as well. And everybody's like, "Oh, the king, the king!" And he literally just gets up and runs away. They turn on all the lights and everything, and everyone's just shocked at the king's behavior. And Horatio and Hamlet go and compare notes at the end after the king runs away, and they're like, "Aha! I called it. Did you see that reaction, Horatio?" And Horatio's, of course, like, "Yeah, of course I saw that. That was pretty, damning evidence." So they're convinced now that the ghost was telling the truth, but they still haven't acted yet. Then we see Rosencrantz and Guildenstern talking to Hamlet at the end, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, your mom needs to talk to you." And definitely Hamlet takes a moment to make fun of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but he's not just making fun of him like he normally would. He's very angry at this point, and this is probably one of my two favorite parts of this play. Hamlet literally says, "Pretend this is a flute or a recorder." And he hands it to him, and he's like, or Hamlet hands it to Rosencrantz or Guildenstern, doesn't matter. And he says, "Play this." And he's like, "I don't know how." He's like, "No, play it." And he's, again, "I don't know how, my lord, it's not something I know how to do." He's like, "Play it." And he takes it, and he's like, "I don't know how to play this." Hamlet goes, "Oh, so it's much easier to play me than it is a musical instrument. Got it. Don't think I'm an idiot. I know what you're doing. You're playing me, but you're saying that's easier than playing this musical instrument that's meant to be played." So he's like, "You think you're playing me, but you're not. You're not getting away with this at all. I see through you. I see through your spine. You're just here to be a sponge. You're soaking up everything the king is going to give you. But that's okay. You'll dry out just like the money will. You're just like a sponge. You soak everything up around you, and then you lose it. You spend it. You give it back up." So we have those two conversations taking place. And of course they try to deny it, but Hamlet, he's just said and done. It's over. Then we have Polonius comes in and reminds him, "Your mother needs to speak to you." And Polonius's game plan is to spy, and Hamlet's game plan is to basically yell at his mother and be like, "Why are you acting like a not good word?" So then we enter scene 3. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are supposed to escort Hamlet to England according to the king's orders. Polonius tells the king that he's going to go spy on Hamlet and his mother's conversation to make sure everything goes according to plan. Then we enter this really interesting scene where the king is actually praying. So Claudius is actually praying. He gets down on his knees and he's praying, and we're listening to this prayer, and he's like, is it so wrong that I wanted the crown, that I wanted my brother's wife, that I wanted all these things, and I took it. I killed my brother, I took his wife, I took his kingdom, I took his life, I took everything from him. But I wanted it too. Like, is it so wrong? Is there anything I can do to really make up for it? And of course, in perfect timing, Hamlet walks by and sees him praying and is going to kill him. He takes out his sword. He's going to kill him right then and there. But then he's like, no, my father didn't get the chance to pray before he died. And neither should Claudius. I'm going to kill him when he's at his worst, when he's going to go straight to hell or he's going to go to purgatory. He needs to suffer too. So Hamlet almost kills him, but then he walks away. Again, more overthinking and not acting or reacting. So the king at the end of this speech, right after Hamlet walks away, he says, probably one of my favorite lines, single lines, words to heaven, it's like words to heaven fly when, it's not meant. Let me see. Let me get it for you, because it's a good line. It's beautifully stated, I think. My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. So my words fly up, I'm saying these things, but my thoughts remain right here. My actions remain right here below, like on earth, basically towards hell as well, excuse me. Words without thoughts, so words without the actions, the oomph behind it, mean nothing. They don't go to heaven. So he's basically saying he didn't mean anything. He just did what he thought he wanted to do or he needed to do, and then he kind of took it all back. And then we enter scene 4. So Polonius tells the queen that he's gonna hide while her and Hamlet are having this conversation, and he does that, and the queen and Hamlet start arguing. He's like, you need to get your act together because you're acting like a really, really bad person, especially to my father. You've offended my father. And she's, Hamlet, you have offended your father. And he's like, no, you have offended my father. Because, of course, she's talking about Claudius and he's talking about Hamlet Sr. So they're both saying you've offended my father, but they're talking about two different people. It's another one of Hamlet's kind of puns, or Shakespeare's puns. So they're arguing. She says, help, help. And then Polonius is like, oh, I'm going to help you. And Hamlet hears it and actually stabs Polonius through the little curtain that he's hiding behind and kills Polonius. So Polonius is like, I am slain. Like, that's his last line. And he says so much, and he just always says the most obvious dumb things. And his last lines are like, I am slain. I have been killed. We got it. We just saw that you were stabbed. And so they continue on with this conversation. And Hamlet actually freaks out his mom. He holds up these two pictures. It says mirrors, but it means pictures. Or glasses. It says one of those words. And he holds up a picture of Hamlet Sr. and holds up a picture of Claudius. And he's like, compare these. Do you have eyes? Are they working? Because this guy is great. Hamlet Sr. was great. My father was great. Claudius, you downgraded. Like, people normally remarry to upgrade. You downgraded. This is trash. This was great. You married trash, and your greatness was dead. So he's really pointing out all the awful things that he thinks about her and calls her a lot of bad names. And basically he really, really upsets her, and the ghost magically appears when she's really, really upset, and the ghost says, Hamlet, you need to be kind to her. Can't you see she's really upset? It's your mother. Be kind. But Gertrude can't see the ghost, so it just seems like she's the only, like, Hamlet's kind of crazy in this moment. The ghost appears, tells him to be nice, and then it kind of disappears after that. We don't see the ghost again in the play. She kind of calls him crazy, and then Hamlet says, I may be crazy, but But you better not go to Claudius. You better not go with that nasty person, into these incestuous sheets. That's my uncle. That's your brother's or your husband's brother. Like, just don't be gross. Like, stay away from him at all costs. And she's like, I promise, I won't. And he's like, well, I have to go to England now and attempt to get murdered. Like, adios. And it's kind of how we end the play when he just, or in the play, excuse me, end Act 3. And he's like, I have to go be taken away to England by my fanged friends, my dangerous friends, my spy friends for the king. Hope I don't die. See you later. Toodaloo. And that kind of leaves us into Act 4 for next week. So please let me know if you have any questions, guys. Remember the usual. You need a question posted by Thursday. And by Monday, you need to have answered one of those questions and answered the questions that are on your paper. So you have 5 questions for this week. Why does Polonius say Hamlet is mad or crazy about? Does Gertrude agree? Why is this one thing what is one thing that Hamlet says about Ophelia in their conversation? What is the basic plot of the play Hamlet is having the actors perform for the king? What do we learn about Claudius in scene 3? And does Gertrude see the ghost? Explain. So those are some things to think about. Make sure you get those things answered and posted on time, please. Again, the question on Thursday and everything else on Monday. Make sure you're checking in with me and ask any questions. If you guys need to do a Zoom meeting, like a video chat meeting with me or whatnot, please let me know. I have no problem getting you guys some extra stuff. I'm going to post the same links from last week, same directions basically, and I'm going to post the links to the extra summary videos in case you need them. Please let me know if you need anything, guys. Again, this is week 3, so I only have one more week posted for you guys on the paper versions. We're going to kind of have to play it by ear after next week just to see what we need to do for the last couple of weeks of school. Whether we're going back, which as of right now, April 20th is our date going back, but if things change, I will definitely be letting you know. Please be posting your things, guys. I need to see that you're posting things. I need to be in contact with you at least once a week. At least. If you need to post everything on Thursday so you're not late, do so. If you need to post everything early, do so. You have all the directions. Let me know if you have questions. Please, please, please let me know if you have questions. But if you're just going to ask me about the directions that are already posted, expect the sarcasm. Miss you guys. Please be safe out there. Hoping I get to see y'all in April. But I guess that is what it is. Neither here nor there at the moment. But be good, guys. See y'all around.